Mr. Arcuri will not be here tonight. Mr. Berquist.
Here.
Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are no special reports. Audience comments, Mr. Lauer?
We have a number of audience comments tonight. What I was going to suggest for council is that we have 6 comments that have been sent in, all with regard to the Aquatic Center, all with regard to supporting that. What I was going to suggest is that we read all the names into the record, but if I could, I'd like to read the email that was sent in by Dr. Diana Donjel and Dr. Donald Sidaway, because that email seems to capture what the other people are also saying. So, to whom it may concern, I would like to express my support for the proposed Peters Township Aquatic Center and would greatly appreciate my email being read during the audience comment section of the next meeting. As community members, healthcare providers, and parents of small children, my husband and I strongly believe that the proposed aquatic center is in the best interest of the township. First and foremost, there has never been a better time to borrow money as interest rates are at historic lows. While we have an uncertain year with COVID-19, we still live in one of the most affluent areas in the country. More importantly, young tax-paying families continue to choose Peters Township as their home. Financially speaking, a community aquatic center increases home values. This should help offset any increases in taxes should they occur. Second, from a medical perspective, a community pool increases cardiovascular fitness while decreasing stress on joints, anxiety, and depression. This benefits all residents, especially our senior citizens who may have decreased mobility or emotional distress from prolonged periods indoors or without exercise. Third, there's no better place to learn to swim than a community pool with certified aquatic instructors. These instructions increase awareness around open bodies of water, teach basic water survival skills. This prevents drowning and establishes a lifelong ability to swim. Lastly, as parents, we realize that our children need safe, healthy venues to socialize. A community pool is a perfect environment to exercise and make friends. Please strongly consider supporting this venture. So there are additional letters that have been provided to council, and we will incorporate them into the minutes. The first is from, I'm going to mispronounce Ms. Jenkins' name, Joe's Andaria Jenkins. The next letter is from Rory and Michael Farron of 529 Cortland Drive. The next email is from Angela Hathy. There is an email from Colin Galvin. And then finally, there's an email in support of the pool from Melissa Wibgav? Okay. In addition to that, there were other comments that people asked to be incorporated. This is from John Musa. I, on behalf of 5 2-hour per week permanent court time leagues, this is in reference to the tennis center, would ask for discussion to be held on modifying the Peters Township tennis bubble mask while playing mandate. A survey should be taken to let the people who use the service have a say in the policies that govern play, especially those with permanent court time. There are many compromised positions that are available. Playing competitively with a mask is intolerable, especially for someone with asthma or overweight. The only thing that I would comment on this is that the mask mandate for indoor use is not the townships, it's the Pennsylvania Department of Health's mandate, including people engaged in athletic activities. This next one is from Michael Wagner. Dear Chairman Ball and Mr. Lauer, this is a response to the regular meeting of November 9th, 2020, 5D, Chapter 440, Section 601, Wireless Communications. The discussion specified small 5G cell towers in subdivisions with no overhead utilities. I want to add a brainstorming idea to the balancing act that will have to happen if residents want 5G. What if we made cell towers multi-purpose with small road signage? Where there are stop signs or speed limit signs, we could try a tower. I am not sure that every 3 or 4 lots will get the coverage they need, but this is my 2 cents. I know in my situation on Turkey Foot, my driveway is just around the bend. If you put a tower in with a mirror so that I can see cars coming up the road, I would agree to that. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's to all. And then finally, the last one is from Julie Cantrell. In the public comments section of the council meeting, I want to ask about the election signs that are still out. There are many that are still out. I thought there was a rule about the length of time that they were allowed to be out. That's the audience comments.
Okay, unfinished business, there is none. New business, the first item is approval of the Tomahawk final plan as shown on drawings prepared by Harshman C. Group LLC dated November 17th from McLaughlin Builders.
So this project was previously in front of council seeking a modification to township regulations to subdivide the property that was not located on a dedicated public street. On September 14th, council approved that modification that would allow the first 530 feet of TP Drive to remain gravel and conditioned upon that TP Drive would be widened to 20 feet. Before council tonight is the request to approve the final plan. The proposed 6 lots in the Tomahawk plan is a reconfiguration of lots 12, 13, 14, and 15 in the Edgebrook Estates plan that was recorded in 1916. All 6 lots have direct access to the improved section, to what will be the improved section of TP Road, and that will be paved to township specifications. TP Road, including this new section, will remain private with maintenance being the obligation of the lot owners in the Tomahawk plan as well as the existing property owners. As a condition of approval of the modification, it required a road maintenance agreement. That road maintenance agreement was drafted and reviewed by the township solicitor, and he has concluded that it is appropriate. The other thing that I would note is that there is a notation on the plan that indicates that, in fact, the road is private and will only be taken over by the township at such time as the entire length of the drive of TP Road is brought up to township specifications. So the developers here, if you have questions.
I believe we had residents here when we had the earlier hearing. Those existing residents posed no objection to the proposed. Correct.
Related to that, though, when I read the notes, I thought that there would be an actual document with their signatures. The information on the plan outlines what's supposed to happen. But there's nothing that says that everybody who lives there now is in agreement. Is there a document of that?
There is a document that will be recorded that when each lot is purchased, each lot owner will be provided the covenants, and in the covenants is a clear definition of.
But the current owners, the people who live on the private drive, have they already signed that?
They have not. They will not be signing this. That they are not part of the Tomahawk plan.
Okay, so then I don't understand the maintenance agreement.
The maintenance agreement is for the 6 lot owners in the Tomahawk plan, and they will exclusively maintain the improved section of TP Road. They will also financially participate in the maintenance of the rest of the road all the way out to Moccasin, along with the existing 5 lot owners.
Okay, but that's what the point, along with the existing 5 lot owners. Are the existing 5 lot owners in agreement?
Maybe Mr. McLaughlin.
I'm not
probably.
trying to pick on you.
Oh, no,
I'm just
Mr.
trying to
McLaughlin will be,
understand.
I think, in a better position to answer that.
To understand, have they all signed the agreement?
No, in my understanding, there's no need for them because we don't own their property or they're part of their ingress or egress.
Are they being financially responsible along with all the new lot owners?
No, pretty much it falls on me.
Well, yeah, but you're going to be responsible, and all the lot purchasers in your plan are going to be responsible for the portion that is going to be paved now, correct?
Correct, but we also have to widen and improve the gravel area from Moccasin to our parcel.
And are you going to be responsible for that? But you're not going to be responsible for that, right? Because you don't own it.
Correct.
So you're just going to widen it, and then the maintenance of that's going to be the responsibility of the owners along that gravel portion.
Just
Along with his contribution.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, I think if the question is in the future, when the gravel section needs repair, it will be up to the people who live along the gravel section, as well, I would assume, the people who live behind it, to come to an arrangement to take care of that.
Well,
Because everybody has a right of access across it.
Well, is there any sort of maintenance agreement in place already between the owners along the gravel road?
No. In fact, they were helpful with us when we started this. They had a rough draft that I believe they gave to Ed, and they were trying to head towards something like this because they have situations where people weren't participating.
and that, Mr. McLaughlin, is kind of what I was trying to establish. You know, if everyone's in agreement, that's well and good. The township's going to step away and not be involved. So I just wondered if at this point you had a belief that everybody was on the same page.
Oh, I do. That neighborhood has been very helpful and very pro this plan. It ends a lot of their problems with, they'll be able to come in, have a cul-de-sac to turn around, the garbage trucks and so forth, the mail can come in a lot easier. So I think they've looked at this as a great thing instead of having a bunch of lots that has 6 larger lots.
Okay. I did have another couple of questions, if you have a minute.
Sure.
On page 36 in the docket, it talks about future parcels, and it states that any new parcels will be subject to the same road maintenance agreement. One of the conditions is that you will not have any new parcels. If I understand the way this is written in the docket. So my question is, shouldn't it say there won't be any new, why is that even necessary? There won't be any new parcels. You're not going to be allowed to subdivide further.
Well, I think that we cover that with, let's say someone wanted to subdivide the 7.9, which I don't see why they would. But then they would have to pave the rest of TP Road, from my understanding.
That's correct. And I'm not sure what you're reading. What exactly are you reading?
I thought that in the conditions, when we first approved this, there was a condition that they could not subdivide any further, that there could be no new lot.
That
I'm
is-
sorry, gentlemen, do you remember that at all?
I thought I remember that too, Monica, or maybe both you and I are remembering incorrectly. I'm going back through it trying to read it now.
It's condition B on the recorded plan, and that condition B states, no new lots may be created beyond the 6 lots within the Tomahawk plan lots without the remainder of TB Road being paid to township specifications. That is our condition.
Okay, so that would trigger the requirement that that had to be paved.
Correct.
It would not completely prohibit that?
Correct.
Okay, so that's why the reference in the maintenance agreement to additional. Okay. On the one plan in the docket, it looks as if there's a driveway to a house that's labeled King at the end of the cul-de-sac. Did I misread that, or is that?
There's a house
Oh, yeah, there's a house.
at the back, right, right, a little
No.
bit further, Paul.
Here? No, down here.
It's on, yeah, I'm trying to remember what page it
Come on, Paul, left.
is. Page 38 in the document.
There's
The question is,
an existing home right
Right.
here.
Yes,
that
Rhonda King lives there.
Beyond this cul-de-sac, with unimproved TP Road, which this owner uses to get to their driveway, which is here.
so how does that factor into this particular road agreement?
They really kind of benefit from us paving the road. We have no way to force them to become part of it.
Okay. I think that was all I was trying to clarify, exactly what the agreement level was and whether or not we were going to leave anything open-ended where we would be faced with people coming to us later.
All right, so the portion that's going to be paved, that's going to be brought up to township standards, correct?
It'll be.
So we're not going to be dealing with another minimum
You will
maintenance
not.
road issue, right?
It will be in a standard right-of-way, and it'll be built to township specifications. So if in fact the gravel section of the front was ever in a 50-foot right-of-way and brought up to township, we could actually consider taking that over.
Do we have any note on the plan, and I'm sorry, I didn't notice it when I was looking before, that specifically says that we will not take over the paved portion until that gravel portion is brought up to township
Yes,
standards?
I think there is a note on the plan to that effect.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, condition D on the report.
All right.
Okay, one other change you made was that you are not going to allow the home that's on Lariat to go out of Lariat. It said,
Well, all three lots on the left have frontage on both TP and Larry. Our conditions on this plan require the three lots on the left side of the street to all use TP Road as their means of ingress and egress.
okay, so is the entrance off of Lariat going to be blocked off, or is that just going to be left to people's devices? Okay.
The other house back there. Yeah, there are other homes.
Not on, I know there are on Lariat, but there's like a cul-de-sac and then there's a road onto that lot. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you for answering.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the Tomahawk final plan as shown on drawings prepared by Harshman CE Group LLC dated November 17th, 2020 for McLaughlin Builders LLC, subject to the 8 conditions set forth by the Planning Commission.
All right, moved and seconded, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is award of a contract for inspection services to Mackin Engineers.
So council previously awarded a contract for the construction of Phase 1 of the Rolling Hills Park project. That project's going to commence immediately upon receipt of permits from the Washington County Conservation District. As was the case with the Rolling Hills Drive project, Mr. Zemaitis will assume responsibility for the overall management of the project. Construction inspection on Rolling Hills Drive project were done by a third-party engineering firm. This arrangement worked well for the construction of the roadways. It's our desire to employ a similar strategy in supervising the construction of the Rolling Hills project. Mackin Engineers is the design engineer of record on Phase 1 of the Rolling Hills project, and therefore I believe it to be appropriate that we employ their services in doing inspection. The one thing that we do know is that A. Liberoni Incorporated, who was the contractor who built the Rolling Hills Drive, was a good contractor to work with, and we would anticipate that our experience would be the same over the next 10 months. And so therefore what we're suggesting is that we have part-time inspection of the project. The proposal that has been submitted by Mackin Engineers is for a times and expense basis with a contract not to exceed $90,000. One of the things that I can't tell you is from the Rolling Hills Drive project, as soon as it became clear that 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 we did need inspection services at some point. Mark was good about ending that service, and I'm sure Mark will be doing the same thing in this regard. The fact of the matter is, and I've talked to council about this, Mark and his staff are really stretched thin with regard to all that we have charged them with over the last year, and I think that's going to be true next year as well. So it's my recommendation that council authorize appropriate officials to sign a contract with Mackin Construction for inspection services for the Rolling Hills Park project in an amount not to exceed $90,000.
So
Second.
Other discussion?
I have a question.
Shocked.
I'm sorry to take up a few minutes, but I need to ask the geotechnical subcontractor, are we being billed for that, or is that part of Mackin's?
part of that.
Okay, so that amounts to the
It's in
same.
the $90,000.
It was hard for me to understand the way it was written. It wasn't as clear. Thank you.
Anything else? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item.
This is a simple resolution authorizing the opening of a checking account at CFS Bank.
Move we approve resolution number 12-01-20, authorizing the appropriate township officials to open a checking account at CFS Bank.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is award of a contract for the installation of fire detection and alarm system for the municipal building.
The 2020 budget included an appropriation of $70,000 for replacing the fire detection alarm system in this building. The current system's over 30 years old. It no longer meets current standards for fire safety. We opened bids. The low bidder was Merit Electrical Group at a price of $65,900. Merit has had experience with projects at Cal University as well as the Redevelopment Authority in Washington County, and they're known to the Tower Engineering who has designed the system. It's my recommendation that Peters Township Council award the bid to Merit Group for the acquisition and installation of a fire detection and alarm system for the municipal building at the cost of $65,900.
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Ordinance amending the 2020 budget.
So we had a public hearing with regard to an amendment to the budget, as I had stated at that point in time. This is an annual exercise. It's driven by a couple different things, and I try to provide examples to what I'm speaking towards. So for instance, we in the Public Works Department, in the Fire Department, in the Police Department, we charge salaries to program areas. And where in general we match up well with what the overall expense for salary and wages are in a department, we don't necessarily always get them budgeted into the appropriate area. So for instance, in this case, in the Fire Department, we have expended $34,500 more for suppression services, and the fire vehicle and the fire station budgets are actually under by a similar amount of money, so we're simply balancing one against the other. The other thing that occurs is that, like is the case here in the liquid fuels budget, we actually got more money in from the state of Pennsylvania to help offset the cost of our capital projects for our road program. This simply recognizes that we received that extra $10,500, and we spent that money then on the road project.
What's that driven by? Is that extra mileage that was added, or is
No, it's that formula depends largely beyond the things that are fixed, mileage and things like. It depends on the amount of money generated from the liquid fuels tax that you're paying at the gas pump. And so the state of Pennsylvania takes a wild guess at what that's going to be for the upcoming year. If that number is something different, we could end up receiving more money or less money. So
it's dividing up the pot depending on what the pot ends up.
yeah, what the pot actually is. And so, and finally, there are projects that where we had them budgeted last year. In the case of the fire suppression, it was the emergency radio communication system, which was like $225,000. We thought that that would be completed last year, but it was not. It showed in the budget as an expenditure last year, so even though you're increasing that this year, it doesn't really affect the fund balance because it was accounted for last year. The other thing that's inside that fire suppression number, that the remainder to get you to 450, are the CARES funds. We purchased items under the CARES program, defibrillators and cardiac monitors, and of course we had no idea that we were going to receive that money last year when we were doing the budget, and so it also the budget amendment's going to account for all the money that we received under the CARES fund. So with that in mind, it's my recommendation that council approve Ordinance 860, amending the 2020 budget.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is ordinance levying a tax on assessed value of real property located in Peters Township for 2021.
So what we are proposing, based upon the proposed 2021 budget, is that taxes be frozen at 1.622 mills. This is the same amount that's been in place since 2018 when the effects of the reassessment. I think it's worth noting that in 2019, the township issued bonds to finance capital projects, and as a result of those bonds, our debt service payments have gone up by $300,000. And while we were able to last year and this year recommend that the tax rate remain the same, I will not guarantee you that that will be the case in 2022. It is my recommendation that Peters Township adopt Ordinance 861, establishing a tax levy of 1.622 mills on the assessed value of real property in Peters Township for 2021.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ordinance adopting the 2021 Peters Township operating budget.
So what is being projected here is a summary of the 2021 budget, and as council is well aware, that budget is the result of many meetings and discussions had with council and staff to determine appropriate spending levels. Where to the outside public it may seem that this is not balanced, but the fact of the matter is that budget is predicated on the issuance of a bond issue sometime next year for the purposes of financing a fire station as well as the aquatic center. I think the one thing I would like to point out to you is that, so that we all work on a common understanding, when you approve this budget, what you are doing is providing the authorization for the operating expenditures, which finance all of the township's departments, the police department, fire department, the library, the planning department, and the rec center. What you are not doing is authorizing the expenditure of funds for capital projects, because as council is well aware, all of those projects are coming back to you anyhow. None of those capital projects are ever, as a staff, we are not in a position to award those without bringing those back to council. And I just want to make sure that everyone keeps that in mind as you consider the budget. Our municipality is not a lot different than most municipalities in Pennsylvania. Primary sources of income are derived from the earned income tax and the real estate tax. I do believe that based upon what we have seen this year, that I would assume that and this budget assumes that the earned income tax will be flat next year. We've been very pleased with the fact that we haven't seen significant decreases in that area despite what's happening in the economy as a result of COVID. In a like fashion, we have budgeted the real estate tax to be fairly flat, and that is in anticipation that we may be seeing commercial tax appeals next year. So Our property tax base continues to grow as a result of all of the residential activity of construction. But Ryan and I both thought the prudent course would be to budget that fairly flat, just in case we have to deal with assessment appeals. Likewise, the transfer tax is budgeted at $1,600,000. That's a very conservative number. It hasn't been that low in quite some time, and in fact, this year, I think you're going to see by the end of the year that it's going to be somewhere between $1.8 million and $1.9 million that we will have collected on the transfer tax. The real estate market in Peters Township is very strong, and you have a lot of new construction that are occurring, and you have houses that are going up for sale or selling quickly in the township. You know, in terms of expenditures, this looks a little bit out of skew from what you would normally see. Normally, what you would see if we were simply looking at operating expenditures is that public works and public safety are the primary focus of the township. The reason why Parks and Rec show at 37%, there's an assumption inside the budget that we will proceed with phase one of Rolling Hills Park, as well as begin construction of the aquatic center. So that pretty much summarizes the budget. We certainly have looked at it in much greater detail as we've gone through the workshops. It's going to be my recommendation that Peters Township Council adopt Ordinance 862 establishing the 2021 Peters Township operating budget.
So moved.
Second. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Ball, you didn't ask for comments.
Oh, you have comments.
I do have comments.
Oh, okay. Many weeks of comments.
Well, again, and I realize we have, and I've sat through every one along with the rest of you, and I appreciate all the work that the departments have done and the manager and assistant manager have done. And I just want to do a disclaimer because I'm going to vote yes, but I am not in complete agreement with all of the proposed operating and capital expenditures. I've stated objections during the workshop. I do agree what Mr. Lauer said. We do need to pass a budget for operating expenses, and I think that the challenge will be to continue to try to look closely at all those operating expenses and not just take for granted what we approved, but to evaluate each one as the time comes, and also to do the same with capital. So I just wanted to give you a disclaimer so that you won't be shocked when I vote yes.
Okay. All right. So, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item is the ordinance adopting the 21-25 Peters Township Capital Improvement Program.
So an integral part of our budget document is a capital improvement program. It outlines not only intended expenditures in 2021, but it attempts to capture expenditures over the next 5 years. I think, you know, significant in terms of this capital improvement program is the work that is occurring at the Rolling Hills Park and the potential for developing the aquatic center, but also I think a significant item to be noted, although it's you know, in terms of its sheer cost next year is nowhere near that, is a new fire station that will be designed. In fact, today we have finished work on the RFP for that, and we'll be issuing that soon. Those represent perhaps the most significant items in the capital improvement program. There are a number of items that are things that we see each and every year that are important to the continued maintenance of the township, and specifically the road maintenance program, as well as the efforts with regard to improving our stormwater ponds. And so it's going to be my recommendation that Peters Township Council adopt Ordinance 863 establishing the 2021-2025 capital improvement program.
I would comment at this point for our residents that when council looks at our capital program, the reason we have a 5-year lookout is that, as as equipment ages, we need to know years in advance when it may or may not have to be replaced. We don't, we don't wait for it to die before we replace it. And it gives us the flexibility of maybe moving something forward or backward in our budget as other things change. When we have a capital item budgeted, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are committed to spending that money. Neither does it mean that that amount of money will be spent. Frequently, when we bid these things out, they come in under budget, which means we then have some space in our budgeting process to reallocate. That frequently happens, for example, with the road paving program or something like that. So, that being said, are there any other comments on the capital program?
I would like to make a comment, Mr. Chairman. Again, as we talked about in the workshop, there are a lot of things on this budget, proposed budget, that are requirements and things that are likes and needs versus wants. It's my preference that we would have focused more on trying to address some infrastructure issues. I do feel that a lot of the road and traffic impact programs are are not addressing the root cause of some of our traffic problems, and I would have liked to allocate money differently related to that. I believe in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, address what has to be done before you address what you might like to do. So there are things here that I think are not a priority. Contrary to popular opinion, I am not against the pool. I just think the timing, it is not a priority, and the timing perhaps is not the best, particularly since we do have a pool in the high school now where people can learn to swim if they ever start teaching them again. But anyway, my point being that there are a lot of meritorious items on here and other things that I don't agree with.
Other comments? Okay, all in favor?
No one made a motion.
Okay, motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 863 establishing the 2021 through 2025 Peters Township Capital Improvement Program.
I'll second.
Okay, now, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, ordinance establishing the 2021 Peters Township pay plan governing full-time and part-time administrative employees.
So the way the compensation program works for administrative employees, positions are assigned to pay grades. Those pay grades then are included in a pay plan that establishes pay ranges for each grade. What I am suggesting and is that that the pay plan for 2021 be adjusted by 2.25%. That increase would match that which was recently negotiated with the police department. It would be lower than that which is afforded public works employees and firefighters, and it is certainly in line with what we see happening nationally. If you look at what's happening in terms of pay increases for state and local government employees nationwide. So with that, it's my recommendation that council adopt ordinance 864 establishing the 2021 Peters Township pay plan with a 2.25% increase in the rate contained in the pay plan. And then in addition to that, that the council give the manager the authority for normal wage increases in 2021 that it be capped at 2.25.
Second.
Discussion?
I just have a question because I tried to do the math on this. The rate change looks to be 2.5%.
It should be 2.25. And now, if it's different than that, I will change it because that's what it should
Well,
be.
I kind of looked at it, and I think that we talked about 2.25, but what's in here is more than that.
If it's different than that, I will bring it back to council because the intent is it to be 2.25.
Okay, I disagree with this because as I stated in the workshops, you all know I don't think we need to do this every year. Are there any township employees, without stating names, who are at the maximum who would not get a raise if this was not adjusted?
There are a couple of positions where you would have people close, but I can't tell you that they would not be able to get in underneath that. I don't know.
So there's no one would be harmed if we don't change this?
Oh, I think I don't think it's a question of harming individuals. I think it's a question of maintaining the pay plan so that going forward, we are paying rates that allow us to attract good employees. That's what I think this is important. So,
Well, and I don't think it's a necessary thing for annual review. So, thank you for explaining that.
but I will verify that, and if those numbers are different, we will adjust it accordingly.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Payroll and bills.
Gentlemen, I reviewed the payroll and bills. Payroll for the recent periods just under $270,000. Accounts payable check run and some earlier utility payments are around $500,000, with the largest payment to Liveroni for road improvements. I reviewed these and move they be approved.
Second.
Discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes of other boards and commissions, any discussion on those?
No.
Miscellaneous.
I have a couple things. One, we have a DCNR grant we've had that is associated with the pavilion, new playground in Peters Park. We have had a difficult time in terms of resolving issues with the contractor out there. This contract is due to expire on 12/31. What I would like, if council is amenable, is for council to authorize Mr. Ball to request an extension so that in fact we don't default on that grant.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Another thing that I'd like to mention just in passing, we have been working with the Library Foundation to try to get new bylaws in place, and I'd like to give a lot of credit to Lacey in assisting the foundation be able to draft bylaws that I think are going to be able to work. The other thing I'd like to point out to you is that they need to be reviewed by a solicitor. Mr. Smith has volunteered to do that at no cost to the foundation, so he's to be commended for that. And finally, I just want to point out the intent is that the lights will go flashing, the traffic lights will go flashing on East McMurray Road this Friday, and that signal and that road will be open for traffic come next Tuesday. So.
I have to tell you, I was not a believer, but Mark, congratulations.
Yes.
Wherever Mark's sitting, congratulate Mark.
Mark, I was wondering about whether or not they were going to put some sort of a guardrail when you're coming away from the crossroads towards the municipal building and the curve where the driveways are, and then there's the open space. Is there an intention for a guardrail or anything there?
There's not. We talked about that. You're coming over that little crest of the hill, so
yeah.
if you're not paying attention, like the first thing you see is the mailboxes.
Right,
You want
right.
to tend to make a hard left turn. It's PennDOT's road, so whatever we do, we would have to run by them. But I've talked to HRG about that, and we've got some ideas.
Some reflectors.
Yeah.
Reflectors or chevrons or something.
Yeah, even if
Follow the curve.
even if what we did, and Mark and I have talked about this, if we planted evergreens along that space,
Sure.
one of the problems you're having, and I think you have this problem coming in this direction as well, you look straight ahead, you see a road that has a double yellow line, and it's a little bit confusing. And so we know that there is a problem there, and our intention is to address it. We just don't know what that is
It's a
right now.
difficult visual on it. So.
Yeah, I almost think if you remove the double yellow lines from the section that were abandoned, I think it would help because you wouldn't catch it.
I agree with that,
That would probably be true.
but
I
there's
thought-
no reason to have double yellow lines there.
Well, but you've got to remember, when you're really looking at it, simply the road surface that was there, and there's no reason, you're right, on a little residential street to have double yellow lines.
I mean, we didn't put them there. They-
Yeah, right, but the residents there have to be very happy with the way that's worked out.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's my code.
Well, it's so far, so far so good.
Anything else?
I did have a question. Were you going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Park and Rec and
Yes,
programming?
yeah, let me explain a little bit what's happening with regard to that and the Department of Health's order. Under the Department of Health order, all recreational activity at the rec center and the tennis center has ceased and will not be reinstated till after the new year. In addition to that, we are going to continue at least until school gets back in session with the program that the library is using, where it's a kind of a drop off to your car program, and we're going to continue to do that until the schools goes back in session. Now, we have work that the full-time employees can be doing at the rec center. It will not be the same as it would be if, in fact, the center was open, but it's my recommendation, given it's such a short period of time and that we are in the holidays, that we not furlough those people for a matter of a couple of weeks, but rather that we continue to pay them. In the case of the library, they're still working the same way they would have otherwise, and so I don't think there's any need to do anything in that regard. But so.
I saw the rec center was trying to do some virtual programs. Are they going to try to continue that, or?
Yes, but they don't have the virtual offerings that the library does, and what I think what they're going to do is to use these couple of weeks to do planning for next year. The other thing about it is today was the first day of registration for programs that do begin in January, and so we need people there to be able to take those registrations.
So theoretically, they're still working.
Yes.
Are they going to all be together, or are they working separately?
They are all working in the building. They are physically separated.
Well, if they're working, then we should pay them,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Are you giving refunds for the classes that have been
Well,
canceled, or do a credit?
What we're going to do,
Because that's going to be a mess.
It's in the last week of the sessions. So to the extent that people want refunds, we're going to do those refunds. The other thing is, because we're in the last week of the sessions, we're not going to dock the people who have been teaching those classes. We're not talking $1,000 either way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think everybody is struggling. Our instructors are struggling with COVID, and so my intention was, if people need to have a refund, we're going to do that. And at the same time, we're going to pay our instructors.
Okay.
Okay. Next agenda, any items, people?
Would you be giving an update on what we submitted as CARES and what we anticipate as far as reimbursement?
You know what, Ryan will be able to do that next week. We have calls in. We know what we have submitted. We have yet to see any reimbursement yet from the county. We're trying to get some direction from the county on that.
Okay, just to clarify, I know we talked about some projects that we then weren't able to complete. But
And our next meeting is next week.
Next
Monday,
week.
21st.
And Mr. Jaworski's going to handle that meeting.
He will do fine.
Okay, if nothing else, we have an executive session.
Yes, Mrs. Merrill said that she'd like to.
Other than that, we are adjourned.